So we're going to go over how to generate a content strategy to develop your rabid fans and readers. The goal with a content strategy, of course, it's kind of loud here with the two mics, so I'll just come down here. The goal with the content strategy is everybody's talking about content marketing right now, but without a strategy, it's really kind of hard to figure out who you're going after, what your audience is, and most importantly, how to track and get ROI out of the content that you're creating. I mean, that's really the most important thing. How are you define ROI, whether it's visitors or revenue? You have to figure out a way to track it and create your plan. And that's what we're going to go over in this presentation. So just a little bit about me. I'm the founder of a content strategy firm called AgileLeverage.com. Speaker and writer. I've been doing marketing for both public companies and startups for about a decade. And I'm an entrepreneur in residence at a business accelerator venture capital firm where I train marketers about going to market with their new product. So, and feel free to tweet, hashtag, of course, ASE14, and email me any questions that you might have as we go through the slides. So the first step is really to get to know your customers, to understand who you're marketing to. No matter what kind of content you create, if it's not directed towards the audience that you think is going to become a customer, a buyer, a reader, however you define a conversion, you're essentially wasting your resources. So you really want to focus and understand who your audience is. So the biggest thing is to create personas. Personas are fictional representations of who your customers are. You want to understand their demographics if you can. You can sometimes get that if you have registration. What geography they're from. Are they from the West Coast? Are they from the East Coast? Are they male, female? Are they 20-somethings, 30-somethings? Do they have children? It's really good to really kind of understand who they are. And you could just open up a Google Docs and start brainstorming with your team. Who is this? It's part supposition and it's part data. Ideally, the more data you have, the better. You can do surveys like SurveyMonkey. Just really understand who your audience and users are. And then what you want to do is you want to build personas. You want to build essentially a persona card. So it would be a card where you would have a representation of who your buyer is. It's a fictional card, but it's based upon the data that you gathered and your kind of suppositions. And you can have multiple personas. I mean, you can have 5, 10 personas. When you start out, it's probably good to start out with 5 or so you can really understand your audience and test your persona hypothesis. But you put a picture. So let's say you're marketing to CTOs. And you determine that they're female. You might have like a persona that says technical Tina, and you would have a representation of Tina, a picture of somebody. And a representative picture you can easily get from big stock, iStock photos. Just so when you start creating your content, you have this card in front of you. So your team really understands who they're going after, and the goal of catering and solving a pain point of that persona or person is always in front of them as they kind of build their content marketing strategy. And what you really want to do is understand their pain points. Your product or your service has to fill a need from somebody. Remember, it's all about the person, and the person here is represented with the persona. So what is their pain point? And more importantly, how do you solve their pain point? And how are you going to message that? You can put that all on your persona card and then have a concrete representation of who you want to reach. And remember, there's also negative personas. You don't want to just target everybody just because they'll go to your site. Cute kid, but he probably doesn't have much discretionary income. So just traffic for traffic's sake or content to get people to your site isn't necessarily something you want to spend your time or resources on. And so what you want to do is create what's called negative personas, the kind of the antithesis of your persona, basically who you don't want to get. So when you create content and your content strategy, you should always think of it in terms of a program or a content program. Understand who you want to go after, and just as importantly, who you don't want to go after, so you don't create content that erroneously targets the wrong people. It helps keep you on the right path. So you can learn more about personas at just agileleverage.com/personas. We just have a nice piece on that to kind of help you, walk you through it. And then once you figure out your personas, you want to develop your team. It's really important to have people that can meet the resources and the expectations of your content strategy. I mean, if you're a 2-person team and you have this grand strategy to do an infographic every week and a blog post every day that drives traffic and revenue, it might not be reasonable given your resources. So you really want to take a good inventory of kind of who's on your team and who could do what. So who will write, edit, shoot? your information. Infographics take one set of skills. You need somebody who's familiar with Photoshop or Adobe products. And another case, you want a writer. Another case, you might want a photographer. So really kind of understand your resources and who will promote those resources too. Who will promote the content when it's created. The person who writes it might not be the right person to tweet about it. They might not have a following on Twitter. They might not be good with hashtags or figuring out where the audience lives. Could be the same person, but really kind of understand who's going to do what. So before I start launching a campaign and a program, I try to understand who I'm targeting, where they live online, who's going to create that content, and how we're going to promote it. So for each line of content, you would have, are you going to promote it by email? Are you going to promote it by Facebook? Are you going to promote it by Twitter? You want to know all this stuff in advance to give yourself the best chance of succeeding. So how do you find the right people? Utilize your existing resources. Look for volunteers. If you're a nonprofit or you have a company that people are passionate about, maybe you own a forum, there could be a lot of people that could really want to create content for you and volunteer. And volunteers are often the best people. You don't pay them and they're doing it for the love of it. And they often know about your product or service really well. So they can really get in there and kind of create content and promote it because they're connected in your community. Industry connections are really good. If you meet people at conferences like Affiliate Summit and you're in the marketing realm, find people that you could team with to develop an infographic. Maybe you're a good writer and somebody else you met is a great artist. Team up with them to create a unified sense of content that you can both promote. What I did is for my company, for Agile Leverage, we have interns. So we had about 5 interns from great schools like Berkeley and Duke. And they write for us, and in exchange to get some great experience, and we're doing it over the summer. So if you have schools in your area, go to the colleges in your area and see if they offer internship programs. And if you can give people credit for it, not just experience, it's great, because you're going to get super smart people that are eager to learn. And best scenario is they give you a lot for little financial output. And consider third-party sites like Elance. I'm not a huge fan of Elance in terms of creating content. It's great for programming and engineering. But for the content people, you could certainly get content on these third-party sites. But I like to have people that are really invested in my product and service, get to know it, and write for me on a frequent basis. So I like to have one-to-one relationships with the people that are on my content team. So after personas, the most important thing to do is set goals and metrics. Really, you have to understand what your content is going to do. How do you define success? If you just one of the challenges is content marketing is somewhat of a nebulous term where I think people put up blogging articles and just write and think they're doing content marketing. They're really not, unless you tie it back to a goal and have an ROI and figure out if you're making money or you're developing fans or however you define success with your content marketing. You don't really have a content marketing program. You just have content. So really important to set goals and metrics, which we'll go over. So you want to determine your goals, your key performance indicators. There's a lot of potential indicators. Sales, of course, is what comes to mind with everybody. But sometimes, particularly with content, sales comes further down the funnel. I like to look at leads. So leads could be email captures, page views, downloads. If you have a membership site, you're using something like Wishlist. Members, likes, retweets, links, unique visits. But I really like email building because then when the email, that actually allows me to build an audience, and you guys all know this, but that allows you to build an audience that you could further your content marketing program with. Essentially gives you a channel that you own. So number of leads captured or email address captured is I think, a really worthwhile goal for a program like this. You want to calculate your success metrics. It's not only important to have your goals, but you want to define your success. Try to figure out a way to quantitatively define your success. So quantitatively, page views, that's quantitative. A number, something where you're going to assign a real value. Monetary value, if you could figure out the lifetime value of a customer, they spend $100 when they first buy, but over their lifetime, they may spend $1,000 with you. So if every piece of content you created or every infographic you created gave you $1,000 in revenue and you spent a couple $100 creating it, you're ROI positive. You would just keep rinse and repeat and keep going. So track it and understand what that tracking means and being able to interpret it in terms of actual numbers that you can then take back to your CEO, or even if you're a solopreneur and you're your own CEO, you can come back and you say, okay, this was a worthwhile investment for me. Then track your results. Is anyone here not using Google Analytics? Okay. Is everyone using event tracking and goals? Okay. So basically with event tracking, you could track actions on your sites. Goals, if you set up a content campaign and you drive people to an email form where they're going to fill out their information, the thank you page should be a goal. Because then you can calculate how many people signed up as a result of this infographic, for example, that led to an email form. How many people signed up, and more importantly, what percentage of people signed up? You may have a low conversion rate. You may have people go see the infographic, but only 1 out of every 300 people sign up. That may be a poor that may be performing poorly to other pieces of content you have. So really kind of understanding goals and the metrics around them helps you determine what you should keep going with and what you should stop with. And in line with that, you want to have funnels. So people come into a page, they see an infographic, they sign up for an email, that's one conversion. And then you might have funnels where you slowly drip information about your product and services to help solve pain for people that are reading those emails. And it's a funnel, and you want to see where people may drop off on a funnel. Do they unsubscribe after the 3rd email? Do they bounce when they get to the page where they have to fill out their email address? By understanding your funnel and setting up a funnel within Google Analytics, you could find where just like a pipe, you could find out where the leakage is and fix it. And then you could turn a negative ROI campaign to a positive one, and then now you have something that you can keep continuing with and repeating, essentially ad infinitum. So after you have your content, you want to build your promotion strategy, right? It's like if you don't get your content out there, it doesn't matter how good it is if people don't know who you are. Some people have an institutional advantage. Well, it's an advantage they've earned. They have a large Twitter following, and they have an audience already built in. They have a large email list they can email out to. But you want to figure out, before you even create that infographic, you're going to know who you're targeting, what the goals are, how you're tracking them, and then you want to know how you're going to promote it. So we'll get into this quickly, where you have an editorial calendar, and you'll figure out on the line of the content who's going to create it and who's going to promote it. And just kind of general promotion, not good. You want to be really specific. So we're going to include it in one newsletter. We're going to send 2 blasts. We're going to have a set of tweets as quotes from the article to drive people to the article, and we're going to put it up on Facebook, with factoids on 3 different occasions. So you want to get really granular. That's part of the plan when you get down to beyond the strategy into the implementation of the strategy. Another good thing is paid distribution. So doing content strategy and content marketing against PPC can be tough because PPC is really expensive. But you could do certainly, if you look at social media networks, it's about connections and it's about content. So paid tweets, really good way to kind of get your content in front of influencers in your market. And they can hopefully share it. Put it on Facebook, paid ads on Facebook. I mean, there's a whole way that you should have a budget against your content so you're maximizing the ability to distribute it. Because without paid content, without paid marketing, you're really relying on virality, which, as we all know, is very hit or miss, or you're relying on kind of your own kind of institutional audience. And you always want to expand your audience anyway, so consider paid social media. Could be a good addition and make your content marketing succeed. So you want to plan your editorial, and you want to have an editorial calendar. So the editorial calendar is essentially, it's really kind of, it's your content strategy in a centralized document that everyone can see. So on your editorial calendar, it'll help you envision the process. And you'll have, what I like to do is I like to map out the year. So what events are coming up in my industry? What holidays are coming up that people might celebrate? What conferences are coming up? And that kind of helps me inform. So you have a macro editorial calendar for the year. It helps you inform kind of what content you want to create on a higher level. And then you would have a monthly calendar. So within that month, we know, for example, if you're in marketing, we know Affiliate Summit is now. Maybe we want to have a few articles and some tweets around Affiliate Summit, assuming our market is affiliates. So you'd have monthly and you'd have annual. And within the calendar, you'd have the promotion vehicles, the piece of the content, who's responsible for it, deadlines, and you really track the content creation from beginning to end. And Google Docs is a fantastic way to do this. Google Docs is free, and your entire team can access it and build on it. So also use analytics, really important. Tells you what works. what I like to do is I go through my analytics and I look for themes. So I look for content themes where people, maybe I have a car site. I may notice that a lot of people are reading about green, Priuses or gas economy cars. That tells me I want to create more content around that. So by looking at your analytics and finding what works, you know to create more of what works. And you may have an article on, let's say, Priuses. Maybe you want to create an infographic on Priuses. And if you're tracking with goal pages and ROI, you could see how much money a Prius article makes you. And then what I also like to do is I look for pages with a lot of traffic and high bounce rates. So if it's a lot of traffic, people are coming to the page, but if they're not performing the action I want, if they're not filling out their email address, or they're just bouncing off of it, that says to me that the sizzle is a lot more than the quality of the content. You want to really get in there and fix it if you see people bouncing off your pages, because it's a lost opportunity. So content strategy, you can just go, we have a variety of articles on this on our blog. You can just, it's under AFSUM for convenience for this. And let's connect over Twitter and ask me any questions. But we only have 18 minutes, so I wanted to stop and see what kind of questions we have 5 minutes now. So just want to see what kind of questions you guys might have. And yes?
You were speaking about the calendar. Did you notice with your experience about the content strategy, if there is a special days or special hours to send special messages according to whatever is the vertical?
So the question is, what's the best time to send content? Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it varies from industry to industry. So with almost any question, I think you want to test that. So send out it at certain times and see, for example, what's your best open rate day and hour. You may find that if you're a B2B product, certainly maybe Mondays might be bad as people come into the office and trying to catch up on work, and Fridays may be bad because nobody's really thinking about work. So it might be Tuesday to Thursday, and it may be in the morning when people are fresh and open to new ideas. So you really want to test it and see what.
Do you have any types to give us?
Well, basically what I just said right there for a business, I don't send on Monday, I don't send on Friday. I send during the weekday, and I tend to try, I find it's best for me in the morning. So, yes?
Do you have any best practices in terms of how small is too small of a team for content strategy, where it's going to be like almost, you're not going to see a lot of ROI because one person, let's say, for example, is too small. They can't execute
Sure.
content to really see meaningful impact, and therefore the program is not going to be successful. But specifically for B2B,
Yeah.
do you have any experience with the SMBs?
Yeah, sure. Sure, yes. I used to work for a company that essentially catered to SMBs. It really depends upon your market, and I hate to give you like a blanket answer to it, but I think it's really important to have somebody at least on staff that can produce articles frequently that are really well researched and really valuable to people. So that might be one person, that might be two half-time people, part-time people, but it's hard to give you kind of a, without knowing more about kind of your industry, it's hard to give you kind of an answer against that. But I would have at least one full-time content person.
So you mentioned, like, for example, somebody who might be doing infographics,
Mm-hmm.
maybe then do promoting. Do you see this person potentially, is there such person that could do the promotion, the content writing?
Yeah. Promotion and content writing sometimes go together, but oftentimes there's slightly different skill sets, particularly infographics. When people are working in Adobe products, it tends to be a totally different skill set than writers. And if your team is small, find a service shop that you can work with that can do it, that you trust, and then just develop a relationship with that team. So you're outsourcing it, but they're part of your team and from kind of like a distance. Yes?
How much, in a ballpark, how much would you pay for content writing? Depending on, of course, I guess, on the level.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I used to actually I had a newspaper at one point, so I really value content, but discounting that, content creators, anywhere, I think to really get a quality piece of content, you're probably looking at a couple $100 to get something decent. $100 to $200 for real writers. And when I say by that, look for writers that have followers, that know people, that have an audience that they're already catering to, because then you're kind of getting their authority and their experience and their essentially name recognition. So part of that $200 is you're kind of buying their reputation. Yeah. Yes?
With my analytics, as far as organic keywords, it's been for a few years this way. It doesn't, 80% of the clicks, it doesn't come. It says not provided.
Yeah. That's a challenge for everybody, unfortunately. So look at your historic data when you have some keywords.
The question is, why is it, and is there anyone else who gives you better metrics?
Yeah, you're not really going to be able to get, I mean, you can't really get those metrics. Webmaster Tools is a way to see some keywords that you normally wouldn't see. Also, look at the actual content itself, and you can kind of back into it and figure it out, is another way to do it. But
Do you know why that is?
why Google doesn't do that?
Why don't they provide it?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, they provide it if you do paid media.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so not the SEO, not the organic, but in my opinion, it drives people from doing SEO and being able to work on a keyword level from an SEO point of view to move into a PPC realm where they're really getting that data. Any other questions? Yeah.
I want to make a focus on Pinterest and Facebook.
Sure.
So you were speaking morning, weekdays. Do you have any advices to use these channels for to connect as personalized as possible with the client?
Yeah. So
Pinterest and Facebook.
yeah. So Pinterest is really interesting. We once ran a Pinterest contest where we got 25,000 repins, and the whole idea from the contest was we had an organizing app. So it was the messy desk contest. So upload pictures of your messy desk, and we got like hundreds of pictures of really messy desks. So for Pinterest, use something really visual because it's a visual medium. That really helps you. And even if you're B2B, you may have a quote unquote boring product, but think kind of horizontally for something visual about it. Yes?
I kind of want to touch on your Pinterest point a little bit. You have to be careful with contests because of their terms of service.
Sure.
I just want to throw that. I work for a wedding blog.
No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
You just know what you're getting into
Sure.
before that. But yes, Pinterest is great traffic source if you use it right.
Yeah, no, you really make a really good point. For particularly with Facebook, read the terms of services before you run any contests. I did a separate presentation on contests at a prior affiliate summit, and you really want to kind of get into the terms of service. They always change. Don't risk your social media account against the contest without understanding the rules. Yes?
Talking about doing contests, where could you do it without any complications, and how well does it help your SEO?
All right, we're on time, but can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, as far as doing contests, you mentioned that Pinterest could be a problem, but is there any place that there's absolutely no problem with doing a contest, and how does that affect the SEO in general if you have a contest?
Sure. So there are apps for contests that you can use that help safeguard you. Also read the rules and the terms and services. In some cases, you might want to get an attorney, but most cases you use the apps that provide contests. For SEO, really there's a social proof baked in SEO, but I think the real benefit is if you run a contest, like a UGC contest, and people link to that content, that's where you're going to get your real UGC bump. I mean, your real SEO bump. I think we're off time, but I'm okay to answer just questions if you have them. Yeah.
Corey, you mentioned, make sure your content writers put less than things. So I was just curious, what do you do to help have the best interest?
Yeah. So what's your niche? Do you mind just?
B2B.
Okay. So, well, first of all, if you have a blog, look for people that comment a lot. Those are people that might be interested. They take a lot of time to really get into it. If you're approaching somebody, look for a writer in the space that's doing a lot of work because they have a vested interest in the space. They might not yet in your company, but they're really familiar with the space. So I would look for people that are already producing a lot of content that's popular, that's shared, that people are retweeting, and approach them. If you can't find it on your own, if you're out of your customer base, or kind of within the comment section of your blog. Yeah.
What's the link to the slides again? Share one slide back where you
Oh, I don't have this presentation up. Affiliate Summit will post this presentation. But on our blog, it's just agileleverage.com/AFSUM. It'll forward to our blog, like Affiliate Summit. And you can just see things on personas. And if you guys just want to shoot me an email, Corey@agileleverage.com, I'll answer any questions that you guys might have. Great. Thanks, everybody.